Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. mypillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in on this Monday after a long weekend. Hope you had a great 4th of July celebration. Got to spend some extra time off, spend some time with your family and friends, and just celebrating our country as we start celebrating the 250th year. Boy, this is going to be an amazing year, and Donald Trump has a big birthday party planned for next year.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills, but I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
What a heartbreaking story out of Texas as the flood death toll nears 70. We've learned that the Camp Mystic director died trying to save some of his campers. This is a horrifically sad story. We have updates for you in today's show. More fallout of the transgender swimmer Lia Thomas saga since the University of Pennsylvania has agreed to strip him of all the medals he won competing on the women's swim team. Some of his former teammates are now speaking out. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent warned that the Trump administration is ratcheting up pressure on global trade partners, setting August the 1st as the likely date for a sweeping expansion of the so-called Liberation Day tariffs. And are you ready to show California Governor Gavin Newsome a big old Palmetto State GOP welcome? It appears the Democrat Party's invited Newsome to visit the upstate of South Carolina this week. Let's get ready. Dick Eastland is the longtime director, co-owner of Camp Mystic, and evidently he has died while trying to save campers from rising floodwaters that swept through this beloved summer retreat in Central Texas over the weekend. He was 74 years old. Mr. Eastland, who had run the Christian girls' camp on the banks of the Guadalupe River since 1974, reportedly acted quickly and selfishly as a wall of water surged onto the grounds early Saturday, triggered by days and days of torrential rains. According to the accounts from camp staff and now a deleted social media post by his nephew, Mr. Eastland was racing to evacuate campers when he was overcome by the floodwaters. Representative August Pfluger, a Republican from Texas at that district, in a post on X, said he no doubt gave his life attempting to save his campers. For decades, he and his wife Tweety poured their lives into loving and developing girls and women of character. Thank you, Mr. Eastland. We love you and miss you. Two of Representative Pfluger's daughters were at Camp Mystic during the storm. They have since been safely reunited with the family. With 750 campers and staff on site at the time of the flood, officials say that Eastland's quick thinking and actions helped prevent what could have been an even a greater tragedy. Paige Summer, a former camper and longtime friend of the Eastland family, was quoted in the Kerrville Daily Times. His last act of kindness and sacrifice was working to save the lives of campers. He had already saved so many lives with the gift of Camp Mystic. Camp counselor Catherine Somerville described Eastland as one of those most selfless men in the whole world. Eastland and his wife Tweety took over the camp more than 50 years ago, according to the story. Over the decades, the couple became cherished mentors to thousands and thousands of young women who pass through the camp's gates each summer. Kerr County officials confirmed yesterday that at least 12 people from Camp Mystic, 1 counselor, and 11 campers remain missing as search and rescue efforts continued. More than a dozen campers have been confirmed dead so far. Inside the camp, photos showed an overturned furniture and cots and had been tossed against the walls, debris strewn through cabins. I mean, literally, it was just a devastated area, and you just it's just horrific thinking about those young campers seeing this happening and not knowing what to do. Kerr County Sheriff Larry Lintha, during a morning news conference, said that we're dealing with the total devastation, and yet stories of bravery and compassion like that of Mr. Eastland remind us of the strength of our community. The overall death toll from the flooding across central Texas reached 69 as of late last night. 38 adults, 31 children, in what is being described as one of the worst natural disasters in Texas history. Dozens more remain unaccounted for as of this morning. Again, the searches continue. Governor Greg Abbott declared a state of emergency in 57 counties, sent the Texas National Guard to assist in rescue and recovery. Temporary shelters have been set up throughout the region for displaced families, and he also set up or called for a day of prayer. In a statement, the governor said, Texas has suffered a heartbreaking loss. Our prayers with every family grieved a loved one and every first responder risking their life in these catastrophic conditions. The governor asked everyone to say a prayer for those who have already been affected, for those who are missing, and that their safe recovery will happen. Although we all know that if they've been missing for this period of time, the likelihood of them showing up unharmed is probably not that great. So just prayers for everyone involved. And as the governor said, for those first responders who are there, who not only have been working around the clock to try to rescue people, but for those first responders who have had to assist in recovering bodies. It's just horrific, something that I would imagine you'd never get out of your mind. For many who knew the camp and knew of Mr. Eastland, his legacy will not only be defined by how he died, they said, but more importantly, how he lived. Camp Mystic alumni flooded social media over the weekend with tributes calling Eastland a second father, a spiritual guide, and the heart of Mystic. One former camper writing under the name of Mystic Mom on Instagram said, "He baptized my daughter in the river where he died. He taught our girls to lead with faith and courage. I will never forget the sound of his voice calling out the cabin names at Flagpole." Camp Mystic has operated since the 1920s and is considered one of Texas's most iconic summer camps for girls. Despite the devastation, staff say they're committed to rebuilding and continuing Eastland's mission. Kerr County officials say recovery teams are working around the clock to locate the missing and to clear debris. I mean, it's like a hurricane came through there. If you've seen some of the images, some of the video. Many mental health counselors have also been dispatched to camps and emergency shelters to support survivors, families of victims, families of those who are still missing. Last night, hundreds gathered for a vigil in Hunt, Texas, lighting candles along the riverbank in memory of Eastland and others who have lost their life in this flood. Somerville, Fighting Back Tears, said he was the kind of leader who ran towards danger. He didn't hesitate. He gave everything to those girls, even his life. Also, another tragic story, like many. I mean, there's a lot of tragic stories coming out of Texas. School officials in Texas announced last night, too, that Reese Zunker, a teacher and high school soccer coach, and his wife, Paula, have been found dead following this flooding. The Kerrville Independent School District released a statement confirming the deaths of the TV high school boys soccer coach and his wife, who was also formerly a teacher at the school, expressing their profound sadness. And the story only gets sadder as school officials also made the plea to keep the family in your prayers, saying that the couple's two children, Lyle and Holland, were still missing as of last night. According to reports, the family was vacationing at a river house near Camp Mystique. They were not part of the camp, but just close by. The Tivy boys soccer team also released a statement remembering Zunker, who they called a leader and inspiration. Coach Reese Zunker was not just a soccer coach, they said. He was a mentor, teacher, and a role model for our Kerrville kids. He rebuilt the soccer program and left a legacy. His passion for his players, students, community, and his family will never be forgotten. Over, campers missing, a lot of people in that area. Homes destroyed. Look, we certainly in the upstate of South Carolina, western North Carolina, we know that feeling after we saw the devastation of Hurricane Helene just last fall, and we saw what flooding can do, what devastation it can cause. So prayers for Texas and everyone who has been affected by this horrible tragedy, and just prayers, for those first responders who continue to work around the clock.
Joey Hudson here. America is facing a health crisis, and the answer isn't more meds. I lost over 30 pounds on the PhD weight loss plan without Ozempic or any weight loss shots. Don't settle for a lifetime of medication. GLP-1 injections like Ozempic help some people lose weight, but they come with side effects, high cost, and most gain it back when they stop. At PhD Weight Loss, we reveal Big Pharma's big secret. Your body already makes GLP-1, the appetite-fighting hormone. Our program helps your body make it naturally so you'll drop the pounds faster. With the PhD method, no side effects, no long-term risk, no rebound weight gain, just natural, lasting results, all without hunger or cravings. Right now, get a free body scan and personalized metabolic assessment. Discover your body's true potential without a shot. It's free and gives you the keys to your personalized plan. Do like I did and don't trade your health for a quick fix. Call now at 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900, or visit myphdweightloss.com, myphdweightloss.com.
We have followed the story of Lia Thomas, the trans swimmer at University of Pennsylvania, for a couple of years now. For the first time, former University of Pennsylvania swimmer Monica Brzezinska is speaking up. She's telling her story about the season that she spent on the same team and in the same locker room as Lia Thomas, the transgender athlete whose presence in women's collegiate swimming ignited a national firestorm that has been ongoing now for, several years. Brzezinska says that she was stunned when she learned that Thomas, who was born Will Thomas, and she knew him as being part of the men's swim team, would be transitioning to compete with the women's team in the 2021-22 season. She said she had assumed that Thomas had already graduated. She found her new locker one spot away from Thomas upon starting the season. Brzezinska told Fox News, "I wasn't going to risk anything." She began dressing in the corner, timing her changes to avoid Thomas, and eventually started using bathroom stalls or a separate family locker room across the hall. At the time, Brzezinska said she kept quiet. Most of the women on the team did likewise. Now, think about this for a minute. You had adults who were supposed to be protecting these young women, allowing this to happen. This young lady in particular was a standout swimmer, and she's having to dress in a bathroom stall, has to go to the corner because she doesn't want to be confronted with this male beside her. And the adults think this is normal. The adults defended this. The adults defended Will Thomas. Brzezinska isn't alone. Three former teammates of Will Thomas, Grace Estabrook, Margot Kozorowski, and Ellen Holmquist, are now part of a lawsuit alleging that the university silenced concerns and pressured swimmers not to speak publicly. According to the court documents, UPenn administrators warned that speaking out could permanently stain their reputations with transphobia and even jeopardize their careers. Again, the adults in the room made these poor girls afraid to speak up, made them feel like they were odd men out, made them feel like that they would be transphobic if they were to object to the idea of a young man being in the girls' locker room. How sick is that? Brzezinska now calls those sessions brainwashing meetings, she said. She says that she refused to attend them. However, most of the girls did. The university has since agreed to adopt new policies aligned with President Donald Trump's executive order reinforcing biological definitions in sports. It will also, and here's the key, it will rescind Will Thomas's, a.k.a. Lia Thomas's, records and issue formal apologies to affected female athletes. Now, that's great, and they should rescind those. The president of the university should drive out to Will Thomas's home and personally collect all of those medals. And the apology, well deserved, although way too late. For Ms. Brzezinska, the decision brings closure, she said. She said, it gave me a deep sense of peace and validation, not just for me, but for all the girls on the team and girls in sport overall. Women's records belong to women. This is a young girl saying this, a young lady now. Speaking to Fox News over the weekend, Ms. Kozarowski applauded the Trump administration for taking action to protect women's sports, but says that there's much more work yet to be done.
Yeah, so I try to think about it more on like a broader scale because I'm really not doing this for myself or anything. What I went through was hard enough, but really I'm doing this for the future generation of girls to go through the program, to go through D1 athletics, and I really want just what's best for them. So I would like for women's rights to be upheld to the utmost standard and for those titles and records to come down.
Is this enough for you, what they did?
It's a good starting point, and I'm really grateful for the Trump administration and what they are doing to protect women, but there's so much more to go. They wouldn't be doing this without the federal government forcing them. So I think we have a long way to go to make sure that women's rights are upheld and policies are in place to ensure the verification process that it's only females in women's sports.
Every time this story is updated, every time there's new details that emerge, it just makes me angry all over again. I was angry at what these schools, these idiots in these schools, allowed this to happen at the time. Because, yes, you can issue an apology, but you can never give back to these young women what was taken from them, the competition. There's a story of one young lady who's part of the lawsuit, by the way, who missed being on the championship team by one position. Guess who took that position? Will Thomas. She will never be able to compete. She missed that. She missed out on an opportunity of a lifetime that she'll never be able to make up again. Monica Brzezinska describes herself as someone who grew up with compassion for transgender people. She's pushing back on the idea that, well, she could have been considered transphobic. She said, and she's from New Jersey, she said she came of age in a liberal suburb and attended a university where progressive values were proudly visible, sometimes quite literally, she said. She went on to say, at Penn, you'll see massive rainbow flags hanging from dorms, not the American flag. There's a very strong LGBTQ presence as part of the school culture. But that compassion, she said, collided with her lived reality in the locker room. She explained how growing up, she was taught to respect other people. She said at one point, she sat down with head coach Mike Schnurr to voice her concerns. She said, I told him, what are you talking about? How is this fair? He said, it's not fair, but if you have any issues, don't talk about it to others. Come to me. She said she never did, nor did others, because they were too afraid that they would be kicked off of the team. They were too afraid of what would happen to them, possibly even losing their scholarship. Brzezinska's account reflects what many female athletes and advocates have argued for years now, that there's a growing culture of fear around questioning policies related to gender identity, especially in some of these elite college programs. Hopefully, they have heard President Donald Trump. Hopefully, they read his executive order, and hopefully they understand that he's not playing around, that he promised during the campaign last year that he was going to protect women's sports, and that's what he's going to do with the full force of the Department of Justice and the federal government behind him. Ms. Brzezinska said that she's largely moved on from collegiate swimming, says that the experience left a mark, though. Of course it did. She says there's a trauma component. It's not something you expect to face as a college athlete. You don't expect your sense of personal privacy and dignity to be dismissed like that. Again, I blame the adults in the room for allowing this to happen. I hope some of those people at the University of Penn, they should lose their jobs. You agree? Email, text, joeyhudson.com. Still a lot of scary scenarios coming out of possible retaliation from Iran, U.S. Ambassador to NATO Matt Whitaker warned yesterday that Iran is facing a pivotal moment following its direct conflict with Israel and, of course, the series of U.S. airstrikes that targeted its nuclear facilities. Even as U.S. officials remain on high alert for the potential retaliation and domestic security threats, there's a lot to consider. Appearing yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures with Fox News' Jason Chavitz, Whitaker emphasized both the urgency of diplomacy and, as in his words, lingering vulnerabilities that the U.S. faces from what he described as consequences of 4 years of Joe Biden, particularly regarding our border security. He pointed to the alarming number of known Iranian nationals who were admitted under the Biden-Harris administration, with border czar Tom Homan recently confirming more than 1,200.
Well, look, you and I have talked about this many times. I said the last 4 years, my biggest concern was this open border was the biggest national security vulnerability this country's ever seen. So I pulled numbers this morning just from a CBP under Joe Biden. There was 1,272 nationals of Iran released in the country between OFO and the Border Patrol.
Does that make cold chills go down your spine like mine? I mean, Iranian nationals who were apprehended at the southern border during the Biden administration and now released into our country, and we have no idea where they are. Compounding the concern, over 1 million gotaways, migrants who crossed but then were were recorded according to internal Customs and Border Protection data. Ambassador Whitaker said, "We have no idea who they are or where they went. That's a real challenge." And again, it's a scary thought, isn't it? To know that there are Iranian nationals in our country. Our country just took out a large portion of their nuclear arsenal, and they're out for blood now. Who knows what's being planned right now? Mr. Whitaker's remarks follow a high-tension week in global diplomacy, if you will. President Trump addressed the nation last week after authorizing the airstrikes that hit 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities. The full extent of the damages still remain classified. Both U.S. and Israel officials have indicated the attacks severely compromised Iran's uranium enrichment infrastructure. Iran kind of suggests maybe not. Their regime has vowed retaliation, prompting U.S. Homeland Security agencies to brace for potential blowback, including cyber attacks, lone wolf plots, and targeted hate crimes. I mean, when you have over 1,200 Iranian nationals who came into our country, we don't know why. We have to assume they didn't come here with goodwill in their hearts. In a memo issued just hours after President Trump's speech, the Department of Homeland Security formally raised the threat level in the U.S. The bulletin from the National Terrorism Advisory System did not cite specific threats, but flagged the, quote, heightened threat environment fueled by ongoing instability in the Middle East. DHS sent in a statement. The ongoing Israel-Iran conflict brings the possibility of increased threat to the homeland in the form of possible cyber attacks, acts of violence, and anti-Semitic hate crimes. Again, Ambassador Whitaker's comments echo concerns raised earlier by Tom Homan, who noted the strategic dangers of failing to track potentially hostile actors exploiting the U.S. And Ambassador Whitaker made the point, we don't know how many got through without being identified.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a very dangerous world, Jason, and I think, President Trump as a peacemaker has made it safer. But at the same time, we're still dealing with a lot of the consequences of 4 years of Joe Biden, including a porous border where not only did we have, as Tom Homan points out, over 1,200 Iranian nationals that came into our country that we know of, but you had over 1 million known gotaways that we have no idea who they are, where they went, and that's a real challenge. But at the same time, President President Trump has been very clear about his policy towards Iran, that they cannot have a nuclear weapon. And they're at a decision point. They should move forward and seek peace. The Israelis have completely decimated their proxy groups, whether it's Hamas or Hezbollah or the Houthis. And at the same, we've helped them as a country with both our work in the Red Sea against the Houthis and with the complete obliteration that we did with the bunker busters on their nuclear program. And so, Iran should come to the table and should sue for peace and should make a peace deal with the United States, with Israel, and just say no more. We want to be in the world where people seek prosperity and a bright future for their citizens. So, Jason, I think right now this puts a lot of pressure on our law enforcement, puts a lot of pressure on DOJ and the FBI to be right 100% of the time and seek out these sleeper cells and to make sure that they can't activate.
I have a lot of confidence in our military, in our CIA and other national security agencies. But when you have that many people in our country, and again, we can't assume they came here with peaceful hearts. And we live in a free country. I mean, you can do a lot of things, and you don't have to check in with your local government. These people, we don't have any idea. And not to scare anybody, not to scare you, but we have no idea what they're doing right now. Ambassador Whitaker said this puts a lot of pressure on law enforcement. They've got to be right 100% of the time. Look, there's been a lot of escalating rhetoric. Iran wants us to be scared. Iran wants us to be on edge. The ambassador calling on Tehran to engage in talks with the U.S. and Israel said Iran is at a decision point. They should move forward and seek peace. They should say no more. We want to be in a world where people seek prosperity and a bright future for their citizens. He credited President Trump with making U.S. position clear and consistent. Iran must never be allowed to obtain a nuclear weapon, period. Ambassador Whitaker said that President Trump has been very clear about his policy towards Iran. That red line still stands, he said. Administration officials maintain that the airstrikes were meant to enforce that line, not to provoke a wider war. And in fact, President Trump signaled early last week that diplomacy remains a possible off-ramp even as Iranian officials are still talking about retaliation. By the way, the Iranian Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei, was seen in public this past weekend for the first time since the beginning of Israel's war against Iran. Khamenei had been secluded in a security bunker for the entire conflict. President Donald Trump has said a number of times that U.S. military assets knew of his location. Khamenei attended a mourning ceremony on the eve of Ashura on Saturday, waving to a large crowd, but did not make any statements. President Trump said during the 12-day war with Israel that the U.S. knew Khamenei's location, but would not kill him, quote, at least for now. Khamenei made his first public statements in days on June 26, shortly after the ceasefire between Israel and Iran began. He said in a pre-recorded statement that Tehran had delivered a slap to America's face by striking a U.S. airbase in Qatar and warning against further attacks by the U.S. or Israel on Iran. So you see, he's warning us, and that's why we have to be vigilant and we have to be concerned about potential sleeper cells. While they're talking about diplomacy, and that's great, I hope it works. I hope the ceasefire continues. I hope that we can come to some type of permanent peace agreement. But it doesn't stop us from being concerned about sources within domestic intelligence that says they're bracing for the worst. FBI, DHS officials are said to be expanding monitoring efforts tied to Iranian-linked terror networks, including possible sleeper cells inside the U.S. One senior intelligence official who spoke anonymously to Fox News said the idea of sleeper cells, that's not Hollywood fiction, that is a real threat. Ambassador Whitaker echoed those concerns and stressed that the margin for error is vanishingly small. He said the DOJ and FBI are under enormous pressure to get this right every time. One mistake is all it takes. And he's right. One mistake, and we could have hundreds, if not thousands, of American casualties right here on our own soil. Recent cases have added a sense of urgency. Just last year, federal prosecutors unsealed charges against 3 men accused of plotting to assassinate President Trump. You remember that? And a prominent U.S.-based journalist on behalf of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. One of the suspects remains at large. We don't know where he is. He's out there running loose. For Ambassador Whitaker, he said the stakes couldn't be clearer. Quote, Iran is deciding what kind of country it wants to be, a rogue regime that funds terror and nuclear blackmail, or a sovereign nation seeking peace and prosperity. I'm sorry, but I don't see Iran being the latter. I'm not sure that the Ayatollah wants to seek peace and wants to be prosperous. I would have bet that he considers himself prosperous, going down the path that he's going down right now. Back home, Ambassador Whitaker said that the U.S. must continue closing vulnerabilities that Iran could exploit, saying this isn't about politics anymore. This is about national survival. Wow. And again, not to scare anyone, but we just have to be vigilant. And we have to support President Trump and the Trump administration, our national security department, support them in what they're doing to make sure that you and I stay safe in our communities all around the country.
Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com.
Okay, breaking news. Governor Gavin Newsome is on his way to my home state of upstate South Carolina. And a notice to Democrats, the party sent this message out dated July 3rd, and I'll read. The South Carolina Democrat Party is hitting the road in South Carolina. Next week, the party kicks off a multi-county on-the-road series with California Governor Gavin Newsome to connect directly with communities that have too often been overlooked by Republicans in power and too often left to recover alone from economic setbacks and natural disasters. It goes on. Governor Newsome will visit some of those economically challenged and environmentally vulnerable rural counties in South Carolina, including Marion, Chesterfield, Marlboro, Lawrence, Pickens, Oconee, Kershaw, and Florence. Now, for those of you who maybe aren't that familiar with geography in South Carolina, that hits several counties that are close to me: Lawrence, Pickens, Oconee. Now, I didn't realize that Lawrence, Pickens, and Oconee were being overlooked by Republicans. Last time I knew, Lawrence and Pickens and Oconee has a majority of elected GOP officials in those counties. The GOP seems to be doing pretty well in those counties. In the South Carolina Democrat Party, their chair in the letter says, Governor Newsome leads the largest economy in America and the fourth largest in the world, and he's coming to meet folks in towns that have been hollowed out by decades of Republican control. This is about building partnerships, uplifting communities, and showing voters they aren't forgotten. Now, does this sound like the Gavin Newsome that we have grown so fond of from California? The letter goes on. It gets better. Many of the counties Governor Newsom was visiting have experienced serious hardships, from job loss and disinvestment to climate-related disasters like wildfires and hurricanes. When coupled with lack of investment and attention from our state's Republican leaders, South Carolina gets left behind. Despite holding every statewide office and controlling the legislature for decades, South Carolina Republicans have failed to build a resilient, inclusive economy that works for everyone. Wow. Are you excited about Governor Newsom coming to South Carolina? It points out that Governor Newsom is governor of the nation's most populous state. They say Newsom has delivered real results for working families in communities in California, launching the largest state tax refund in American history, raising the minimum wage. They don't mention the fact that there's a lot of fast food restaurants that have either closed or gone to total automation because of that minimum wage raise. They say he's expanded paid family leave and making 2 years of community college tuition-free, including career and technical education. He has also established a year of free preschool for every child, provided every public school student with 2 free meals a day, and expanded access to health care to more low-income residents than ever before. His record shows what's possible when leaders invest in working families. You think Gavin Newsom, his staff, maybe his potential presidential campaign staff, wrote this for the South Carolina Democrat Party? They say on the road with Governor Newsom demonstrates the South Carolina Democrat Party's focus on grassroots organizing, local empowerment, and building long-term political infrastructure in every corner of the state. Their chairman says our strategy isn't about chasing cable news coverage. It's about showing up and building trust town by town, county by county. That is our path back to power. We're proud of the gains we're making, but we're even more focused on what's ahead. And I guess Gavin Newsom's going to lead them in that direction, you think? This is laughable, isn't it? But you know what? There'll be a lot of Democrats show up to hear Governor Newsom. Now, I think he's probably going to be met by some very curious members of the GOP as well, because I've already received a couple of email messages from various groups in these counties planning to greet the good governor from California when he comes to their county. This is going to be fun to watch, folks. He's coming Wednesday, by the way. So mark your calendars. And if you're in one of these counties, not just the ones I read, the other counties that, like I said, he's going to be in Marion, Chesterfield, Marlboro, Kershaw, and Florence counties. Kershaw and Florence, those are down, of course, in the lower part of the state. But look, do a quick search, do a Google search, and find out where he's going to be close to you. And let's just give Governor Newsom a big Palmetto State welcome. What do you think? You think we can do it? Speaking of party politics, Elon Musk, of course, the former Doge director, he's been upset with President Trump recently. He announced the launch of a new political party. This, of course, a day after President Trump signed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act into law on Friday. This mark by Musk is a pretty sharp turn for a guy who just a few weeks ago was standing in the Oval Office over the shoulder of President Trump. In a post on X, Musk unveiled his political venture with a blunt diagnosis of the American political system. Here's what he wrote. When it comes to bankrupting our country with waste and graft, we live in a one-party system, not a democracy. Today, the America Party is formed to give you back your freedom. I'm not quite sure what to think of this. I'd love to get your comments. Email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. You can text me. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Always use promo code Joey when you go to MyPillow.com and place that order. Musk is, he has implied that he has a better idea for a better political party than what we have now. Now, I get it. The Republican Party, we have our faults. But still, I'm not sure, even with Musk's billions of dollars, I'm not sure that we're ready for another political party. Am I wrong? Look, it's not the first time he's talked about this. It's just the first time that he seems to have been ready to take action. Details have been very sparse so far. He said that the party won't use an acronym and will avoid the trappings of traditional political organizations. Instead, it will concentrate its efforts on a handful of congressional races, 2 or 3 Senate seats, and around 8 to 10 House districts, he said, where Musk believes that his party can become a decisive swing vote. He wrote, given the razor-thin legislative margins, that would be enough to serve as the deciding vote on contentious law. So in other words, he's going to, which is a pretty smart idea, I guess, if you got the millions to back it up, he's going to target certain U.S. House races, certain U.S. Senate races, with the hopes of just winning a few of those seats. And all he has to do is win a few, and he could disrupt the slim majority that we have. We'll see. We'll see. What do you think about Elon Musk's America's Party? A number of filings took place once he announced this. We still don't know for sure exactly what it's going to look like, but I'm sure we'll know soon. I'm sure that Elon Musk will be out front with plans for his new America's Party. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.